Welcome back everyone, and it's time to go balls deep. In today's video, we are going to go into extreme detail covering all the demons of, you guessed it, Demon Slayer of course.
Well, duh.
You may be asking, how did the first demon come to be? Well, the first demon was none other than the main antagonist of the series itself, Muzan, making him the progenitor of all demons that would eventually cause terror in the present time. Muzan, even before he was born, when he was inside his mother's womb, death loomed over him. Death was always stuck to him, and that was the case until the day he died. Think about it. The sun could kill him at any moment if he gets caught lacking. Also, there is a whole corporation dedicated to killing him, created by his own family. Muzan came out of the womb stillborn, and as he stated himself, the shadows of death were always close to him to the point where his heart stopped breathing numerous times in the womb. When all hope looked lost, Muzan's family was ready to cremate him until he let out his first cry. As Muzan grew up, he grew to have a huge insecurity regarding death, as everyone had reminded him of his weakness and his feeble body that could take his life whenever the symptoms resurfaced. The feeling of death would cause Muzan to grow impatient, since the doctors had told him that he wouldn't live past the age of 20. One day, a doctor offered him a prototype medicine that contained a special rare flower, a blue spider lily. Muzan was told that this medicine could cure his disease or at least extend his lifespan. Left with no choice, Muzan decided to take this medicine, but blinded by his anger and impatience, Muzan killed the doctor, thinking that the medicine had no effect. However, right after, Muzan realized the doctor's medicine was actually working, but the world of Demon Slayer decided to punish him for his sin. After killing a selfless human that tried to help him out of a pure heart, it activated a curse into the world, the curse of being a demon. He thought he obtained a strong body, but there was one major problem. Muzan noticed that he would die if he got hit by sunlight. He would also start craving human flesh, but that wasn't an issue for Muzan since eating people actually solved his problems. This gives us an early insight into Muzan's selfish desire. He would happily eat other humans if it meant it fulfilled his insecurity. However, even after obtaining a strong immortal body, Muzan resented the curse of not being able to go out under the sun. He desired a body that could survive even in the sunlight. This is because it would allow him to be the most supreme being on earth, and his fear of death would not be able to touch him. Muzan would make it his priority to seek a way to negate these side effects to perfect himself. He started by searching the doctor's compounds to see what they used to make the medicine, right? But this is when he found out that the blue spider lily medicine was only in its experimental stage. Muzan searched all over Japan to try and find this flower, but it was no use. He had searched every corner but couldn't find it. The only person that knew where it was located was the doctor, but you know, he killed him. What Muzan failed to realize is that if he signed up for our awesome memberships for our channel, I would have given him the answer on our private Discord in a call. No problem. You're a freaking idiot. Why didn't you just hire a human to go do the job, to go in the sun and find the flower?
You idiot. You're honestly an idiot. I don't know what's wrong with you.
Anyway, guys, that's right. We've launched our memberships. There are different perks on there for a small price. For the basic memberships, we are offering a private Discord where you can talk to us directly about anime. And that's what we all love, right?
Goddamn right.
Now, obviously, I'm going to tell you guys now, this video contains major spoilers as the Demon Slayer manga has been completed. We are going to give the entire story from front to back regarding every demon. Now, at the end of the manga, we found out the reason Muzan couldn't find the blue spider lily. It was because this special flower only blooms for a short period, literally 2 or 3 days in a year, and only during the daytime where there is sunlight. After sunset, the flower withers away. This is why Muzan for 1,000 years could not find the blue spider lily, just like the doctor, you know, to cure him of his problem. But what an idiot. Oh my god. Anyway, during Muzan's journey, he began to learn the abilities he had been granted by turning into a demon. Muzan noticed that if he gave a portion of his blood to a human, they would also turn into a demon. That is, if they can withstand the volume of his blood. But if they are strong enough to take Muzan's blood, they also gain special powers. Muzan also discovered that he had the power to absorb other demons, and in doing so, he would keep their powers to himself. With his newfound powers, Muzan made it his mission to turn many humans into demons, hoping that one day he would stumble across the secrets of surviving in the sun through them. Even though we learn in chapter 127 he didn't really want to do this due to his self-desire in becoming the only immortal supreme being. Muzan's arrogance is time and time again depicted where he sees himself as a natural disaster, and it was only until 1,000 years later such a demon came into existence, that being Nezuko. Now I can go on and on about Muzan, his powers, his entire backstory, but I will cover that in another video in complete detail. So make sure to hit the notification bell for our channel, and don't forget to smash the like button because I'm working hard out here. I did an hour plus video for this. Like, come on man, come on, you have to support me. So now that you finally understand how the first demon was created, let's talk about the 12 demon moons. During Muzan's journey of turning humans into demons, he unintentionally created them. The 12 strongest demons to have been created over 1,000 years are divided into two groups of 6. Lower moons meaning the 6 weakest members, and upper moons meaning the 6 strongest members. Each demon, depending on their rank, is given a marking in their eye to reflect their position. The lower moons only display their number in one eye, whilst the upper moon in both of them. A demon can be placed in either of the two groups by proving their ability. They do this by defeating the current holder of any spot above them, thus taking their place, or if a current moon has died and a spot is available, those most suited will fit in. They also have to be able to withstand the blood of Muzan. There's only so much of the blood that you can handle. Their goals are to A, give Muzan's blood to humans, turning them into demons, and B, to keep the demon slayers away from Muzan whilst he searches for the blue spider lily. I'm now gonna pass the video on to Harrison as he will explain the former lower 6 and officially begin the video.
Okay, so next we have former lower moon 6 Kyogai. When Kyogai was human, he wanted to become a writer, so he looked for some mentorship. After finding a mentor, he was told that everything he wrote was garbage and that there's no beauty, no value and no greatness when he writes. He was told to quit since he never went outside during the daytime anymore, which made him pretty much a Hokokomori. Come on, I mean, I know a lot of you guys watching right now, you can relate to him, you don't have to hide it. Naughty, naughty. And so now Kyogai's mentor noticed that he's always playing the drums, so he told him to stick to that because, again, like I said, his writing was garbage. Now, it's not really been stated when or how he got Muzan's blood, but being told to quit and that his skills weren't good enough to even be shared with other people sort of pissed Kyogai off, and so in an angered state he decided to kill his mentor with his blood demon art. However, things wouldn't go as Kyogai planned from here on out. Being the hikokomori that he was, this demon secluded himself indoors and subsequently was unable to become stronger due to the lack of humans that he could eat. As a result of this, he was cast aside by Muzan since he couldn't be of good use to him. This causes Kyogai to seek out a way to please Muzan by consuming a rare type of blood known as marechi. This blood is very intoxicating for demons in the sense that they can't resist themselves from drinking it. It's kinda like alcohol for them, making it the most sought after blood by demons. But most importantly of all about marechi is that it is the equivalent to 100 ordinary humans. So it's kinda like steroids in a way that it's a shortcut for demons to get stronger. And Kyogai hoped that by consuming this blood, his thirst for human flesh would reawaken, and he would be strong enough to get Muzan's approval once again. This would then lead to the events with Tanjiro during his trip. trip where he encounters him and eventually kills him, but not before complimenting Kyogai's blood demon art, which caused him to shed a tear as he disintegrated after finally having someone see the value of his work. And that leads me on nicely to my next topic, which is his blood demon art. Kyogai's blood demon art drumming is essentially 6 drums on his body that allow him to manipulate his territory, aka a mansion. He has 2 drums, one on each shoulder, which allows him to rotate the room he is in to the left or right. Another 2 drums, one on each leg, which lets him shift the room he is in either forwards or backwards. Another drum on his back that can teleport him or other people into another room within his mansion, and a drum on his navel which creates 2 claw-like slash attacks which he can direct at his opponents. The number of claws can increase depending on the intensity in which Kyogai plays. While rotating the rooms around, Kyogai will always remain in the position he is standing in, as he is immune to his own blood demon art. Now this brings me on to the current Lower Moon 6, Kamanue.
Who?
This guy?
Who?
Yeah, alright, okay, I'm gonna be honest. We know nothing about this dude except that he was the weakest of the 12 active Kizuki. So we're kinda just gonna skip him because, let's be honest, he's kind of irrelevant. Basically, Muzan lectures them about how being in the ranks of the 12 Kizuki isn't the end. It is only the beginning of what is to come. He states that their sole purpose is to consume blood so they can be of use to him, yada yada. You all get the story. Basically, all you need to know is that Muzan swallowed him. The end.
Alright, so next up we have the Lower Demon Moon 5, Rui. Many years ago, from the start of the series, Rui was born a frail and weak human, to the point where the very act of walking or breathing would hurt him. This caused him to spend the majority of his life trapped inside of his home. However, even if Rui had a weak body and couldn't do anything, his parents still loved him and looked after him. In many ways, this parallels Muzan's own life as a human. This is when one night Muzan approached him and offered to save him and turn him into a demon. With his new demonic body, he became stronger, which obviously brought joy to his parents. However, now as a demon, Rui of course needed to consume human flesh. This caused him to kill a man inside of his home. His parents later found out what he had done and of course were horrified from this scene. Later that night, Rui's father decided that he must be stopped and had planned to kill his son during his sleep and then himself afterwards. However, this doesn't go as planned, since Rui wakes up and in anger for attempting to take his life, he kills both of his parents, rationalizing that his true parents would never try to kill him, thus considering them as to be fakes in denial. From here, he began to fully come to his life as a demon, killing and eating humans as a means to become stronger. Eventually, Rui met Muzan and became one of the 12 demon moons. After some time, Rui began to repress his memories of a human. Subsequently, Rui began to gather the ideal family members for himself, which consisted of other demons weaker than him in struggling situations which he took advantage of, forcefully changing their appearance to match his own white skin and red markings, essentially kidnapping them and forcing them to play his familial game, and if they refused, he would simply kill them. We saw this happen when he killed one of his older so-called sisters for planning to escape. Now, until our boy Tanjiro gets assigned a mission to go to where rumors of a demon have spread to be at Mount Nagatumo. When they end up meeting, Rui decides to add Nezuko to his family after seeing Tanjiro and her perfect sibling relationship. My man was basically jealous. This of course angers Tanjiro, who's like, no, Nezuko's my sister, and tries to kill Rui, but sadly gets his ass slapped as Rui survives Tanjiro's first use of the Hinokami Kagura dance. Eventually though, Tanjiro is saved by Giyuu, who decapitates Rui in one shot. Like, my man doesn't even try at all. One thing, one shot, one bang. As Rui passes on to the afterlife, he reminisces about his time as a human and continues to envy Tanjiro and Nezuko's bond. But then he actually regrets his actions as his spirit meets his spider family and begins to recover his own human memories. Whilst in purgatory, Rui sobs, knowing he can't join his parents. But the ghost of his parents' spirit comes and comforts him, telling him, "That's not true, my boy," promising him that they will be together forever. Now, as for Rui's blood demon
demon art, they are very simple. His powers revolve around Spider's, physiology, which allows him to manipulate threads. Now, don't get me wrong, he ain't exactly Spider-Man, but he is pretty strong. He can manipulate the length of said threads as well as their durability, which even makes him capable enough of destroying a Nichiren blade with ease. He's also capable of shaping these threads to whatever he likes, which makes room for creative attacks, but also they do essentially cut you so the outcome is the same. To add to that, he does have demonic blood, which is an ability that allows you to enhance a fellow demon's power, which kind of makes sense from his familial, trope of him being the leader of his family and whatnot. But on top of all of this, he can also use cellular manipulation, which allows him to control the physical appearance of other demons who consumes his blood, which is the case for each and every one of his family members. Now, a quick note is that he also possesses enhanced durability and strength, but demonic blood, enhanced durability and strength are all inherited from Muzan by each and every one of the demon moons. So from here on out, we are not going to mention them as it's kind of redundant. But with that, let's move on to the next one.
Okay, so up next we have Lore Demon Moons for Mukago, Lore Moon 3 Wakuraba, and Lore Moon 2 Rokuro. Now, we're going to do all of these together because they're all irrelevant. Just like Lore Moon 6 Kamanue, there is no information at all about any of these guys, not even their powers or backstory, as they all basically got sucked up by Muzan during the Lore Moon meeting in chapter 52. Lore Moon 4 contradicted Muzan, so he sucked her off real quick.
Yeah, boy.
Lore Moon 3 was such a pussy and had the brilliant idea of running, so in the blink of an eye, Muzan beheaded him.
Why are you running?
And let's not forget Lore Moon 2, who told Muzan to give him more blood. And after Muzan asked him why he should reward his failure, the Lore Moon 2 was like, "Oh, you misunderstood, master." But Muzan was like, "Get your fake ass, bitch ass self out of here, bruh."
Shut your
However, talking about all these irrelevant demons, we also have to talk about one demon from Rengoku's Gaiden series who used to be the previous Lore Demon Moon 2, and his name is Hairo. Although his life is pretty unknown, we do know that his demon form was nearly destroyed by Rengoku's father, but he was spared / led, becoming the lower rank too. He actively aimed and killed demon slayers, collecting their Nichiren blades as trophies. He also usually shot his head with a pistol, as little things could make him bleed, so to contain his anger he would hurt himself. So because of him shooting himself in the head so many times because he was angry, his brain was so damaged that he couldn't even remember his memories. So Hairo, being the second highest ranked lower rank of the 12 Kizuki, was a formidable demon. His marksmanship and swordsmanship talents made him a deadly opponent. Despite being a Kinoe, the highest non-Hashira in the Demon Slayer Corps, he was able to stand his ground against Kyojiro Rengoku. Hairo's Blood Demon art allow him to create and control shadows with unique features and traits. His shadows are shaped like white triangle patterns, or they kind of look like eyeballs. These shadows have a suction-like effect that not only absorbs physical harm, but also makes it tough to escape. Moreover, his shadows have a peculiar characteristic that allows him to conjure objects from anywhere his shadows are. Hairo's shadows are full of weapons, but since these firearms are genuine, they have a limited amount of ammo. Hairo has shown to be an expert marksman with his vast arsenal of firearms and ranged weapons against Kyojiro. He alters his battle posture and employs his Bushido sword method after exhausting his gun supply. His sword talent can even rival Rengoku's, but it's not as refined as in the current timeline where Rengoku is of Hashira rank. This is basically how Hairo ends up dying, as Rengoku manages to succeed where his father failed by killing Hairo with his 9th form of the fire-breathing technique. Kyojiro remembers his family's precious words to set his heart ablaze, which motivates him to go a step further and kill the demon.
Continuing on, we've got Lower Moon 1 Enmu. From an early age, Enmu had problems distinguishing dreams from reality, which caused problems to those around him. He was extremely sadistic and vile and took pleasure in seeing others suffer. Although he wasn't a doctor, he would use hypnotic therapies to give terminally sick patients a beautiful dream, shortly before turning it into a disgusting nightmare. Later on, as a demon, he would do the exact same by giving them a happy and pleasant dream before turning into it a horrible nightmare. nightmare. This sadistic nature also applied to his feelings towards his fellow demons, where he relished seeing the ranks beneath him be killed in front of his very eyes. One night Muzan showed up to devour Enmu, and of course Muzan succeeded, but afterwards he noticed that Enmu didn't really feel any pain from getting his insides ripped to shreds, and with his last breath Enmu praised Muzan before he died. This convinced Muzan to turn him into a demon. Later on, during the meeting that happened in chapter 52, Enmu was the last left and was going to be executed, but once again my man started to simp for Muzan. As a last ditch effort to preserve his life, Muzan gave Enmu an injection of blood with the task of killing the Hashira and Tanjiro, with the prospect of even more of Muzan's blood if he was to succeed. Enmu subsequently caught up with Tanjiro and his friends aboard a train. He intended to feast on all of the train's passengers by fusing his body with the train, trapping them in their dreams with his blood demon art. Of course, I mean, we all know what happened next. He legit turned into the whole ass train and couldn't even kill a single person. But in terms of his powers, his blood demon art is dream manipulation, which essentially allows him to put people to sleep and control their dreams at will using a number of various methods, such as having your train ticket stamped in the Mugen train by the conductor. He can also kill somebody by using this, if he destroys someone's spiritual core whilst they are asleep. However, there's a danger of being affected and possibly mentally changed by the unconscious mind of his victim. And so because of this, Enmu always sends somebody else into his target's dream instead of himself, as seen when one of Enmu's human agents is touched by Tanjiro's inner kindness and subsequently loses his will to destroy Tanjiro's spiritual core. He does this by having people tie themselves to those asleep by using a rope. The only way to wake yourself up from inside his dream is by killing yourself inside the dream state each time you are sent to sleep. He can also manipulate his flesh as well as detach parts of his body and control them at will, which we saw when one of his hands had a mouth on it, using it to communicate with others on the train. He's also able to use his flesh manipulation to fuse with other objects, like we saw him do with the Mugen train. But like I said, none of this really helped him because he died in the end anyway, so who cares, moving on.
Okay, so now moving on, we have the Upper Demon Moon 6 Daki, alongside her elder brother Gyotaro. Daki was born in the entertainment district's lowest caste area with the name Ume. This is where only the sick prostitutes go when they could no longer work in the brothel, and they get sent there to basically die. Her mother was also a prostitute there, giving birth to Daki's older brother Gyotaro, who was born a few years before her. Their mother was mentally unstable, going as far to attempt to take her own life as well as her son's via miscarriage numerous times. One day, out of anger towards Daki's hair color, she tried to cut her hair. Gyotaro, enraged by the actions of their mother, went on a rampage. This caused her to distance herself from her children. Due to this, Daki was raised mainly by Gyotaro until her early teen years. When her mother finally passed away from a disease called Ume, the same name that Daki would then be named after, this could be symbolic of how her mother views her as a disease that nobody wants and will eventually kill you. Growing up, Gyotaro noticed that his little sister was so beautiful that even grown men and women falter from just looking at her. This gave Gyotaro hopes that maybe by working together they could escape poverty and live a better life. Daki would eventually get scouted and rise to the most prestigious brothel in the entertainment district, even to the point where she started to train to become an oiran by being given a proper education and fed the finest food. For those who don't know, an oiran is basically the highest ranking you can hire to do the good stuff with, you know what I mean.
Yeah, boy.
Even before working officially as an oiran, Daki was making that good bank OnlyFans money. Meanwhile, her brother worked as a collector, collecting any money that brothels would owe to them. Their rise to the top would end when Daki poked out the eye of a samurai, one of her customers, out of anger because he was insulting her older brother. In retaliation to what she had done, she was tied down and burned, basically left to die in a ditch at at the end. Gyutaro then found her, and he basically went into a panic state from seeing her in such a near death state, because this whole time they only had each other to rely on. While trying to save her, Gyutaro was found by the same customer Daki blinded alongside the manager of the house where she worked. They attempted to kill them both, but Gyutaro went on a rampage once again and killed all of them. He picked up his sister and headed to the nearest town in search of help, but it was of no use. His effort to save his sister was in vain, as he noticed no one would help them. Exhausted from his previous fight and injured, Gyutaro collapsed and passed out. That's when the Upper Moon 6 of the time, Doma, showed up, and out of pity, claiming he was a nice guy, offered his help to turn them into demons in order to save them. Years after becoming a demon, she made a name for herself because of her cruelty. So much so that senile elder remembered her ill temper and demanded for Princess to be added to her name. She would then go on to be recognized by Muzan after she took over the entertainment district with the help of her brother, and earned the title of Upper Moon 6. As for her powers, Daki's blood demon art is called Flash Obi, which allows her to create sentient flesh that can be detached from her body and be used as a weapon. She can control the length of the Obi created from her flesh, as well as their durability and sharpness. It can be made so durable, in fact, that she can use it to stop herself from being decapitated using it. She can also manipulate her hair the same way she does with her Obi. She has also displayed the ability to be able to use telepathic connection with her flesh Obi, as shown in chapter 78, when she was able to see and communicate with Inosuke in a cave she made, even though she was fighting Tanjiro on the surface. Another one of the extra abilities her flesh Obi has is the ability to be able to store humans inside it. Humans are stored in a state that could be considered internal slumber, since you can't really escape it. She does this to store fresh humans that can eat whenever she wants. Basically like a personal fridge, bro. Holy shit. OP. During her career as a demon, Daki battled and killed 7 Hashiras. As for her brother's blood demon art, he can harden or soften his blood at will, and he's also capable of directing blood-based attacks in any direction he desires. He uses his blood manipulation in conjunction with his bone sickles to create powerful blood slashes. Even if you dodge any of these attacks, he can just redirect it towards you again, making it difficult for you to completely dodge them. On top of that, his blood is also poisonous, so even a small scratch could kill you. As with all upper demon moons, they both possess immense regeneration and are able to heal fast. And since both of them have an incredible amount of Muzan's blood, they gain immense speed and reflexes. Don't ask why, that's just how it works with demon moons. Since immense regeneration, speed, and reflexes are all basic abilities, every upper moon has them. I would not be mentioning them any further since I just explained it and it's synonymous with pretty much every demon we explain in this list, so keep that in mind. That's also part of their abilities. And to top it all off, as if they weren't OP as they are, when both of them are in sync, they are capable of some pretty insane shit. Like, they possess decapitation immunity. This means that when her brother is sleeping, or if he has his core inside her body, they're immune to dying, since you have to cut both of their freaking heads at once. Speaking of cores, his brother has an ability where he can manipulate his core and implant it inside his sister, making her more powerful and immune to dying at the same time. Bro, what the fuck is this shit? These guys are OP. And on top of that, since they both are connected, this allows them to have extrasensory perception, allowing them to receive information from each other and process it twice as fast, leaving you with no blind spot for you to exploit. Okay, so next up on the list is the current Upper Moon 6, Kaigaku. Honestly, there isn't much known about him from his younger days. The only thing we know is that Kaigaku was an orphan as well as a thief that ate scraps and stole food to survive. He was also one of the orphans that Himejima, the rock pillar, took care of in his temple before he joined the Demon Slayer Corps. One night, because of his thieving habits, he got caught stealing the money from the temple. He got chased out and encountered a demon on the way. Kaigaku made a deal with the demon that he would guide him to the temple where there are more humans if he just spares his life. Right away, we see that this guy is a bastard, snitching on his own homies like that, bro. You know what they you know what they say. Snitches don't get bitches, and sure enough, he don't. Look at him. Eventually, after escaping, he was found by Jigoro, the former Thunder Pillar. Kaigaku trained every day under Jigoro's guidance to master Thunder Breathing. He was able to master almost every form of Thunder Breathing except one. Since he was incapable of performing it, this was the first form. It's not really explained why he can't. He just can't do it. Alright, okay? He just can't do it.
So just don't do it! Don't make your dreams come true!
Meanwhile, his partner at the time, Zenitsu, could perform the first form and not the other 5. Jigoro trained them both at the same time. He wanted both of them to become his successors, but Kaigaku always considered Zenitsu to be a waste of time because of his timid and weak personality. This basically goes against all of Kaigaku's philosophy, as it doesn't matter what you do in life or what your values are, as long as you survive. That's all it matters. Ironically, however, Zenitsu is the one that kills him in the end, so who got the last laugh, you know? During the period in which Zenitsu and the others were training with Ashira to awaken their Demon Slayer mark, Kaigaku had an encounter with Kokushibo, the upper rank 1 and the second strongest demon in existence. His survival of the fittest instincts kicked in and he kneeled before the demon, accepting Muzan's blood, transforming into a demon as means of survival, just like his master's teaching. However, because of the immense power Kaigaku had, being a swordsman just like Kokushibo, it took significantly longer to turn him into a demon. This was because of his skill in total concentration breathing, giving him a heightened resistance to the blood. The news of his betrayal to the Demon Slayers even caused his sensei Jigaro to commit seppuku, which deeply saddened Zenitsu. Having mastered 5 out of the 6 thunder breathing forms, he is capable of infusing his newly acquired demon strength with his thunder breathing to make it more lethal. He did this by incorporating his blood demon art into his attacks. His slashes infused with his blood demon art caused the flesh of his opponents to burn, which would eventually spread to the eyeballs as well. This allowed him to become the upper rank 6 demon extremely fast, as by the time the next and final arc began, he was already a member of the Kizuki 12. In fact, it was extremely lucky that the raid on the Infinity Castle happened when it did, as according to Yushiro in chapter 146, if Zenitsu had fought him just 1 year later, Kaigaku would have had time to master his new abilities. Zenitsu would have been killed immediately without difficulty. This guy really had the potential to go right to the very top if he was given the hundreds of years of time the other Kizuki had gotten. However, he was defeated by the kid he hated, Zenitsu, who felt guilty for the death of his sensei and letting Kaigaku turn out this way. Zenitsu created his own unique 7th form thunder breathing technique to kill Kaigaku.
Up next, we've got Upper Moon 5 Gyokko, also known as Jafar from Aladdin. His backstory is relatively short. We only really know that he used to live in the outskirts of a fishing village near a coast known by his real name, Managi. He was always disliked by other villagers for repeatedly collecting fish carcasses and doing other sketchy shit. Yeah, trust me guys, this dude's a complete nutjob. He lost his parents at a very young age after his parents went fishing on a boat only to never come back. A couple days later, their bodies were found extremely damaged. This, along with his weird behavior, made the villagers keep their distance from him as they thought he had gone a little bit batshit crazy, which, to be honest, he had done. He was fascinated by the beauty of his parents' drowned bodies, and so he decided to kill a kid the next day that was teasing him. And if that wasn't bad enough, ladies and gentlemen, he stuffed the kid's dead body into a jar. What the fuck, man? This was witnessed by the parents, who decided to kill Gyokko by stabbing him with a 2-pronged fishing fork, where he was then left to die suffering. I mean, good, he deserves it. What the fuck is this guy? Before he could pass away though, Muzan found him, which is when he turned Gyokko into a demon. This gave him probably the weirdest body out of all the demons we see. Yeah, that's right, even weirder than a guy with 6 eyes. Gyokko has one long body, kinda like a snake, with a muscly torso that has several small baby-like hands growing from it. He also has one eye in the middle of his forehead with 3 mouths, 2 of them in the place where his eyeballs would usually be. And it doesn't end there. All of this comes out of some small porcelain pot. Do you see what I mean when I said that this guy looked a little bit weird? What is he? Well, that's actually his blood demon art called magical pots. This allows him to teleport to any of his little porcelain vases instantly, thus making him one of the most difficult demons to face in battle. Because as well as his immense combat ability and strength, he can also effortlessly traverse the area in combat, making him a difficult target to land a solid blow on. And I mean, even if you do land a blow on him, this dude just considers pain a pleasure anyway, so it's not really done a great deal except turn him on. He can also summon non-sentient fish-like demons from his jar, because I mean, of course he can. These aren't like any other demons, however, as just a normal decapitation isn't enough. In order to completely kill them, you must locate the pot in which they spawned from, destroy that, thus killing them. His pain in the ass pot doesn't stop there either, as he is capable of forcing other objects into them, trapping them inside, and that includes even other humans. He is able to condense a human to the size needed to fit his pots, and then once they're inside his pot, he is free to perform any inhumane cell manipulation on them that he wants. This cell manipulation of his is also likely the reason he's got such a ugly look as well. As you can probably tell by now, his upbringing had an effect in his life as a demon and his blood demon art too. Just like how he was obsessed with the grotesque dead bodies of his parents, he moulded himself to also look, well, you know, a bit grotesque as well. Keeping himself as well as others in his porcelain vase is kind of like how he kept that kid that he murdered in a jar as well. Well, on top of all of that, he of course also has his little fish friends, which relates back to his fisherman parents. Oh, and did I mention he can even manipulate water from his pots to suffocate and drown others, just like how his parents died? And in an emergency situation, Gyokko can even molt, revealing his true form, which is covered in transparent scales which are harder than diamond. This transformation also makes all of his abilities and strength become way more powerful, all while looking like a weird merman. It also allows him to turn anything that he punches into little fishes. And despite this, however, Gyokko met his match when facing Muchiro, who had just awakened his Demon Slayer mark, decapitating Gyokko. And good, because he bloody deserved it.
Moving forward, we got Upper Demon Moon 4, Hantengu. Hantengu was always a very cowardly individual. During his days as a human, he committed many crimes from murder to stealing. He was a very mentally unstable individual who suffered from split personality disorder and hence caused him to blame his crimes on the hand and not himself. He literally tried to push all his guilt and wrongdoings by personifying this part of himself and separating it. However, this ridiculous defense of his innocence wasn't listened to, and thus he was sentenced to execution. Whilst awaiting his fate, Muzan showed up and offered his helping hands to get it. That's kind of funny.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
That's kind of funny.
And offered his help, turning him into a demon as he pitied Hantengu. Subsequently, he fled jail thanks to Muzan's help and silenced the judge who sentenced him to death. However, the magistrate informed him that killing him would not change the fact that his previous acts would be punished in the future. Even after becoming a demon, his timid and cowardly personality stayed with him, as he would squeal when Akaza attacked Doma and would bow in fear of Muzan's arrival. His fear of Muzan is what compels him to ensure he completes his mission. His split personality and upbringing also links to his blood demon art, known as emotion manifestation, which allows him to split and manifest his emotions as a powerful younger clone of himself, with their own unique appearance, personalities, and abilities. By being pushed into tight spots many times throughout his life, Hantengu used his blood demon art to create different demonic clones based on his emotions to protect himself. His original body is named Cowardice, which reflects the majority emotions and personality that he is composed of. His original body also is the core that can actually kill him. And though it doesn't have any other techniques to use in combat, he is very skilled at being stealthy. This was illustrated when he was able to completely hide his presence from both Tanjiro and the mist Hashira Muichiro. To add to that, this side of him also has great reflexes shown by dodging their attacks easily. His body is also extremely durable, being able to easily soak up bullets fired by Genya. And finally, cowardice Hantengu can even alter his size to the point where he becomes so small where he was able to completely erase his presence from sight. Now coming to his clones, starting with Anger Clone, also known as Sakido, he has the power to create and manipulate lightning at will using his blood demon art. He does this by using a kakakara, a staff-like tool which is used as a noisemaker by monks to announce their presence and fighting away animals, later adapted into being used as a weapon. With one single lightning bolt attack, he almost caused Tanjiro to be knocked out before being saved by Genya back in chapter 106. So this one ain't a joke. However, we got more. Up next is Relaxation, aka Karaku. This clone of Hantengu uses maple leaves made from his flesh to create powerful gushes of wind, easily capable of destroying an entire building, leaving craters on the earth, and even immobilize others using just pressure created from the gust of wind. Karaku, as you expect, is very relaxed on the battlefield, as seen when he would praise those he is fighting, treating each fight as a game rather than a deathmatch. Because of this, the other clones of Hantengu would often get frustrated. The next clone we have is Sorrow, also known as Aizensu, who has the power to manipulate a spear known as Yari. Using his blood demon art, he can also thrust his Yari to create multiple high-powered attacks, which is actually quite capable of leaving large holes through Genya's body effortlessly. Unlike Karaku, who was lax in battle, Aizensu is depressing and completely negative towards everything. We also have Orogi, which is the personification of Hantengu's joy. Orogi has the power of bird physiology, allowing him to become a bird-like creature. His talons are very sharp and hard as diamonds. He also has a sonic scream, which allows him to blow anyone away and also render their hearing senses useless, as seen when he caused Tanjiro's ears to bleed. Being the demon of Hantengu's joy, he enjoys the thrill of battle. Similarly to Karaku, he takes pleasure in treating fights as a game. Now guys, the most powerful form that was created was when Anger Clone absorbed all the other emotions and created hatred. This clone is called Zohakuten and takes the appearance of a small child with the rings of drums appearing behind his back, like the Japanese god of thunder, Raijin. Strength was so overwhelming that the menacing aura he emitted alone was enough to make Genya and Tanjiro sweat and breathe out of fear. However, he also has his own blood demon art too, which allows him to manipulate wood. This clone has the wood Kakegenkai on lock. He is able to create wooden dragons that he uses to chase down enemies. Zohakuten is also able to manipulate the sizes of these dragons and create more of them from its mouth to extend the range. Zohakuten can also use an enhanced level of the other blood demon arts from the emotions and clones he had absorbed. This clone of Hantengu is seriously not a joke and literally deserves to be at the position of Upper Demon Moon. However, with this ridiculous amount of strength, there is some drawbacks, as the more strength Zohakuten uses, the weaker the main Hantengu body would get. So weak in fact that Hantengu would need to seek out more human flesh to replenish himself, which then brings us to the final emotion, which is resentment, also known as Urami. He looks just like the original Hantengu's body and doesn't have any abilities that aid him into battle except the ability to increase his own size, which he does in attempts to hide the original Hantengu in his heart to escape from danger. And again, not being the original Hantengu, he can survive a decapitation, as seen in chapter 125 with Tanjiro slicing off his head. Hantengu was finally killed after Tanjiro, using his nose, was able to sniff him out, knowing that he was so small and able to hide into the heart of Urami's headless body. So in chapter 126, Tanjiro, with the help of Nezuko, is able to finally end him, which subsequently also stops the other clones. Okay, so next we have is Nakime, who after Hantengu's death took his position as the Upper Moon 4. During her time as a human, she was a struggling amateur beaver musician, but the guy she married was a hopeless gambler who spent her money and did little to improve their circumstances. He even went far enough to gamble away her performance costume one night. And so, like any sane person, Nakime bashed her husband's head in with a hammer. Now, after killing him, the sensation of her first murder was then then reflected in her performance with shaky hands. That being said, the sound of Nakime's beaver was so beautiful that the audience clapped for an encore. Because of this exquisite performance, she was rewarded with great pay. This meant from here on out, before each performance, she would commit murder. Literally, her husband made her into a serial killer. This, however, was also her downfall. One day, her pre-performance murder victim was none other than Muzan himself. Muzan admired Nakime's skill and promised to turn her into a demon. She took his offer and became one, and subsequently one of Muzan's top servants. Upon becoming a demon, she gained many important techniques that were instrumental to Muzan's success. Her blood demon art is an extra-dimensional stronghold. By strumming her beaver, Nakime can manipulate and transform the space of the Infinity Castle at will. She can also generate and detach multiple eyeballs from her body after she reached upper rank 4 and received more blood from Muzan. This allowed her to become the perfect spy, as she could locate all the hidden demon slayers at the Ubayashiki mansion. Although she is not physically strong, she can use her control over the castle to smash and crush her enemies. In fact, her most prominent role was during the attack on Muzan at the Ubayashiki household. Nakime used the blood demon art to transport them all to the Infinity Castle for the final arc by creating a portal, which is something else she can do to bring outsiders into her own space. This space, known as the Infinity Castle, consists of many different rooms, as seen in the final fight against the Upper Moons. Nakime sits at the very center of the Infinity Castle, with the entire space around it being distorted by her. And by using her hair, she is able to bind and root it into nearby walls inside the castle to control it and position it as she likes. However, the drawback to this is while she does that, she has to remain still, basically rendering her immobile. Now, amongst the Upper Moons, pretty much all the fight happened in this castle. Kokushibo's fight took place in an open room with pillars, the fight with Doma in a small garden, all whilst Nakime was in the Infinity Castle surrounded by this twisted space. Now, as we've seen in the fight between her, Iguru and Mitsuri, her control over space around her makes her hard to fight, as landing blows is super difficult. And as the last remaining member of the 12 Demon Moons following Kokushibo's death, Muzan used Nakime's eyes to watch the death of Iguru and Mitsuri. However, it was later revealed that Yushiro had taken over her vision, manipulating it to trick Muzan as his revenge for killing Tamayo. Basically, Yushiro hacked her brain and mind, effectively giving him control of all her blood demon art, which is the castle itself, and the surveillance she possessed that was being sent to Muzan. After not being able to take back control, Muzan resorts to killing Nakime himself by crushing her head to stop Yushiro using the castle to his advantage against him. But before she's about to disintegrate, Yushiro uses her final moments of her life to send Muzan and all the other Hashiras outside, using the portal technique that took them to the castle in the first place.
Right, well, I think it's about time we got to the best villain in the entire series, which is, of course, upper rank Demon Moon 3, Akaza. Born with the human name Hakuji, he was raised in the slums by his ill father. Throughout his life, Akaza desired strength above all, which first stems from understanding the weakness he possessed in his situation. As a way to pay for his father's medication, he pickpocketed out of love. However, due to his lack of strength, he was caught and would be branded with tattoos each time. After receiving 3 pickpocket tattoo lines at the age of 11, he was warned that he would have had his arms chopped off if he was found committing such crimes again. Akaza was beaten and whipped. Even so, he fearlessly exclaimed that he will steal again. If they chop off his arms, he will start using his feet. Because of this, he was referred to as the Demon Child, where Akaza agreed, as he was born different from everybody else in the village, as he was born with teeth. However, the news of Akaza being caught the 3rd time devastated his father. His father felt responsible for Akaza's life as a thief, and so, like any good man wishing to make a change in his son's life, well, he hanged himself. As a final message for his son, Akaza's father left behind a letter which told him to live a righteous life and that he didn't want to take medicine to live that was being earned through crimes. This death broke Akaza, who went in despair after losing the father he loved. Akaza even stated that he would have died for his dad. Being banished from his home due to his crimes, he went to another town, causing a rampage. After nearly killing 7 men and everybody else who stood in his way, Akaza was discovered by a martial artist named Keizo. At first, Akaza challenged him to a fight, but he was embarrassed and got his ass beat. But, impressed by Akaza's ability to beat 7 men with no weapons, Keizo invited Akaza into his dojo as his first student to study the Soryu style of fighting. During his time there, Akaza would take care of Keizo's sick daughter, Koyuki, after her mother recently drowned herself due to stress. Koyuki would actually later go on to become Akaza's fiancé. At the age of 18, he was asked to be the successor for the dojo. However, days later, Keizo and his daughter were poisoned by a rival dojo. This enraged the human Akaza, and was one of the first times that the demon inside of him fully came out, as he savagely murdered 67 members of the dojo with his bare hands. This massacre was so brutal, in fact, that after 30 years, all records of it were disposed of as fiction because of how completely unbelievable it was. Even Muzan believed that a demon was to blame for the murders, so he went to investigate, which is when he discovered Akaza, and thus turned him into a demon, wiping his memories. Even after having his memory wiped, however, he sought out strength, and according to Doma, wouldn't attack women, which suggests that some of his human memories remained, as his love for Keizo's daughter, Koyuki, made him not want to kill any women. On top of this, over the years as a demon, Akaza still honed his skills to become the strongest that he possibly could, and thus he became one of the strongest demons there is, killing multiple Hashira, including the GOAT Kyojiro Rengoku. Akaza's blood demon art, Destructive Death, mixes shockwave-like assaults with his Soryu style he learned from the dojo, which he kept as a demon. These shockwaves come in numerous shapes and sizes and can be created at will from a distance and from wherever in his body, overall adding a devastating impact to his punches and kicks. One of the techniques Akaza performs is called Compass Needle. Akaza places a snowflake-shaped compass with numbers 1 to 12 beneath him. This skill allows Akaza to identify and follow his opponent's whereabouts, giving him 0 blind spots. And then there's Akaza's ultimate karate move, Blue-Silver Chaotic Afterglow, which generates an omnidirectional onslaught of thin, sharp shockwaves from a flurry of blows. As Tanjiro explained, Akaza always automatically sought for his vital spots, as if his fists were magnets attracted to them. This, paired with his immense speed and strength, makes easy to understand why he is such a formidable opponent for any Demon Slayer. He also has extra sensory perception, which allows him to sense somebody's battle spirit. This makes him capable of predicting upcoming attacks as well as seeing his opponent's weak spots. He can also tell how powerful you are just by looking at you. This greatly increases his proficiency during battle, which makes his strikes even more deadly. He was even able to conquer the demon's major weak spot, which is of course getting your head cut off, as seen in chapter 154, where he is capable of completely regenerating his head. However, due to his battle with Tanjiro and Giyuu, Akaza's memories began returning. Because of this, even after surviving decapitation, Akaza ended up stopping himself from completing his regeneration, as the onslaught of memories made him realize who he was and what he fought for. Because of this, he ended his own life, as he couldn't make the change his father wanted for him to have lived a full life. On the brink of death, he was visited by the ghost of his past, from his father, sensei, and his fiancée, following the theme of Demon Slayer that the will and thought of those of the past are what is truly eternal.
Next up, we have Upper Demon Moon 2, Doma. Compared to the other demons, this one has some serious psychological issues. Even before he was a demon, he was, well, a psychopath. Born with gorgeous rainbow-colored eyes and immaculate white hair, Doma was seen as a miracle and thus worshipped, being raised as a religious leader of the Paradise Fate shaped cult, a position he held even during the current events of the story. However, according to the first fanbook of the Demon Slayer, despite Muzan not liking Doma, he made Muzan the figure of worship in the cult after becoming a demon out of loyalty to his new master. Now, even from his childhood, his followers would always come to tell Doma the sad life story, saying all they wanted from him was to lead them to paradise. He cried, but not because of their stories, but because he felt sad that humans created such fairy tale stories within their imagination. Doma, pitying them, decided to play along. In reality, Doma doesn't truly believe any of it, nor does he think gods or Buddha exist. From the get-go, Doma lacked a sense of morality, which was even showcased during his early years as a child. His mother went crazy and killed his father for having a lot of affairs with fellow cult members. After murdering him, she poisoned herself to death. Despite becoming an orphan and these traumatizing events happening right in front of his eyes, Doma was only concerned about the bloody mess and the unpleasant smell of blood. He only wanted to get the stink out before it ruined his furnitures. Not once did he feel any form of sadness or loneliness. Once again, a psychopath. Later, at the age of 20, Doma met Muzan, who turned him into a demon. By becoming a demon, Doma gained immense power. He eventually rose to the rank of upper rank 6. At some point, whilst exploring the entertainment district, he came across the dying Yataru and Daki siblings we mentioned earlier. Doma, being a good guy, promised to save them by turning them into demons and giving them his blood. This speaks volume to his power, as these two rose in becoming a 12th demon moon themselves. In fact, despite turning into a demon after Akaza, Doma was able to overcome his position and become the upper rank 2, though this could be due to his natural affinity for being a predatorial demon. Doma, having many body counts, consumed much more blood than Akaza. Doma also mentioned how women are the most nutritious because they can carry babies. You know, this is the level of thinking we're going at. But Akaza would refuse to eat them. Hence, Doma has more strength in his blood demon art. But before I get to that more in a bit, let's first begin to understand how he's responsible for some of the most important events in the entire series. For instance, Doma is the entire reason Inosuke wears his boar mask, as he was responsible for his unique upbringing. 15 years prior to the current storyline, when Inosuke was a baby, his mother Kotaha fled her abusive husband, seeking refuge in Doma's cult. Even though a demon was running the place, the followers were fooled and still believed in its connection to God and safety. Either way, Inosuke's daddy decided to follow, bringing his own mother with him. But because they were making too much noise, I guess in trying to find his wife, Doma ended up killing them. Doma was also inclined to kill Kotaha, but her beauty and singing talent persuaded Doma to let her live. It wasn't until she discovered he was in fact, eating up the place, devouring his disciples, that she attempted to escape the temple with Inosuke. As Doma chased her down, she threw Inosuke off a cliff into a river to give him a chance of living before she was inevitably killed. After killing her, Doma mocked Inosuke's fate as he ate Kotaha's bones. This event fundamentally gave rise to Inosuke we know, as he was found by some wild boars, later to be raised amongst them. Some years later, Doma fought the flower Hashira Kanei Kocho, who was the older sister to the insect Hashira Shinobu. Doma ended up mortally wounding her during his encounter, but the rising sun forced him to flee before he could consume her, which later down his life, in his fight against Shinobu, he stated how he regretted he wasn't able to taste her sister. Kanae's death would lit the fire in her sister's heart to take revenge against Doma, in which Shinobu would even go as far as to alter her own body, making it extremely poisonous to demons, in hopes that if she does get consumed by Doma after her fight, Doma would die or be extremely hindered. This is what exactly happened, with the poison being strong enough to melt Doma down to his very bones and prevented him from regenerating, which ultimately gave Inosuke and Kanao the opportunity to finish the job. Now coming to Doma's blood demon art, which is a representation of his cold, dead heart even before he was turned. Pyrokinesis. This technique allows him to manipulate ice at will, whether it be creating it from nothing, altering its shape, or creating a lethal powder that renders one unable to fight at full capacity. Yes, it's exceedingly dangerous to anyone who inhales it, killing the cells in the victim's lungs, making them unable to breathe swiftly. Ice and frost are also known to be exceedingly cold, as shown by the fact that the air around Doma's frost was enough to make Shinobu's lungs feel like they were ready to explode. In fact, this frost almost froze Kanao's entire body and its surroundings, simply by coming into touch with it. Doma is also a master of his blood demon art, capable of constructing structures out of the icy he creates, such as frost lotuses, stalagmites, clouds of frozen air, and even ice clones capable of unleashing the same techniques that Doma himself can perform. He's also shown the capacity to utilize the ice he makes as an additional limb, such as when he used the ice vines to prop himself up against the ceiling whilst hugging Shinobu. Doma is also extremely skilled in the Japanese martial art of Tessenjutsu, which is a fighting style that incorporates those big fans he uses. By utilizing these fans into his blood demon art, it gives him the deadlier range, in turn making it a great offensive weapon as well as a defensive one too. Doma's final technique is a giant ice bodhisattva, which ironically is a giant Buddhist statue. Considering Doma himself was worshipped, I guess it kind of does seem fitting, but this giant ice statue is pretty broken as it can generate massive gusts of his deadly ice powder and freezing attacks, on top of the obviously very powerful physical attacks most of Muzan's demon possesses. Now, as if he wasn't already busted enough by being a skilled martial art, with the addition of his blood demon art, Doma is also shown to be able to absorb humans whole without the need of eating them, which again illustrates how quickly he can get powerful by consuming blood, unlike his peers. Again, Doma believes that Akaza, who is a member of the upper three, has little chance of beating him in a fight. Doma was also able to defeat Akaza in a shorter amount of time, demonstrating the massive power differential between the two demons. Doma is capable of moving quicker than the eye can even perceive or comprehend, seemingly looking as though he teleports even to his upper ranked brother Kokushibo with his improved visions and reflexes. Doma's superhuman speed was once again shown as he chopped her lady into pieces despite Shinobu bringing her out of Doma's strike range. Doma's immense power is further demonstrated by the fact that even in a life or death situation against the most powerful demon slayers, he rarely fights seriously and instead adopts a casual, carefree attitude, only becoming serious when his life is in grave danger, such as when the deadly effects of Shinobu's poison became apparent. Doma's inability to feel emotions has also turned out to be an unanticipated benefit for him, as it enables him to comprehend, understand, and analyze any scenarios without being impeded by emotions, enabling him to quickly devise any solutions for any enemy. Although after his death, it did seem that he acquired some affection for Shinobu, marking the first time he expresses genuine emotions, but this could be because he broke free from the material and entered the spiritual, leaving any defects of this world. But without a shadow of a doubt, Doma by far is one of the strongest demons in the entire series. In fact, possibly even stronger than the upper rank 2 if he had the opportunities to live as long as him. Again, remember, Doma is much younger than Akaza and Kokushibo. Just think about that, guys. With that, let's move on to the next one.
Now lastly, we got the strongest demon moon to have ever exist. Upper Demon Moon 1, Kokushibo. He was born alongside his twin brother Yorichi, with his birth name Michikatsu Sugikuni. Now remember, we have covered Yorichi's entire story in extreme detail in another video. The link will be in the pinned comment for you to binge watch. Kokushibo was born as a twin. It was seen as a bad omen due to the potential struggle over succession within a family. And since Kokushibo's brother Yorichi was born with a strange ominous mark on his head, their father decided to kill him. However, their mother angrily intervened, and a deal was made to send Yorichi to a temple when he turned 10. Kokushibo, being the successor to his family, made their upbringings as siblings entirely different. He was always receiving the best clothes, the best education, the best room, even the food they ate was wildly different. For a very long time, Kokushibo pitied his brother as he seemed so frail, always clinging onto his mother's side for so long. And the fact that he hadn't spoken a single word since the day he was born, he felt like, dude, is this guy a mute as well? But still, in the beginning, their relationship was still loving and sibling-like. Kokushibo would go behind their father's back and play with him, from dice games to flying kites. Unfortunately, after being reprimanded by their father, Kokushibo stopped. So to give his brother something to play with, Kokushibo gave him a handcrafted flute. His overall relationship with his brother was that of pityness, which pushed him to feel charitable towards Yoriichi. However, things were about to change, until one day at age 7, whilst he was training, his brother Yoriichi asked him if his dream was to become the greatest swordsman, which was the very first time he even heard his brother speak. Yoriichi then proclaimed his own goals to become a samurai, making the start of Kokushibo's envy. Yoriichi would always watch his brother practice his sword technique, but one day one of the trainers wanted to humor him and handed him a wooden blade to test his skills. To everyone's surprise, Yoriichi was a prodigy and was able to strike 3 vital spots on the trainer. This incident surprised Kokushibo, who had never before landed a blow even once, and he begged his brother to teach him his secret. To his disappointment, Yoriichi only expressed his distaste for combat and stated that he no longer wanted to become a samurai, and he only briefly mentioned what would later be the early form of sun breathing. Kokushibo realized that even though he was putting effort into becoming the best, at the pace he was going, he was moving like a turtle compared to Yoriichi. His jealousy would start growing slowly since everyone viewed his brother as a complete failure and not skillful at all. But here comes this apparently useless person defeating someone superior to him with no experience whatsoever and has more potential than himself. He also feared that now that their father likely knew about Yoriichi's immense potential, their roles would be swapped and he would be the one that would be sent to the temple in Yoriichi's place. One night, Yoriichi approached Kokushibo telling him that their mother had passed away and that he would be leaving the house to go to the temple immediately, even though he still had 3 years left to stay in the house. After hearing what his brother had to say, Kokushibo couldn't say anything back to Yoriichi and just watched him leave. He later discovers the reason why he left. It was because the decision to change Kokushibo for Yoriichi as the family successor had been decided. Yoriichi didn't want his brother's dream to fade, so he decided to leave. He also learns that the reason why Yoriichi was always clinging to their mother was not because he was just acting like a baby, but because he acted as a support for their mother as she grew more feeble. His brother was completely selfless in comparison to himself. He was a true son that everyone wanted, and Kokushibo felt useless. It was then that Kokushibo felt the flames of jealousy start to consume his heart and mind. 10 years after this event, Kokushibo lived a peaceful life. He was blessed with a beautiful wife and kids. Kokushibo from this child would later be the ancestor of Muchiro and Tokito. Regardless, Kokushibo considered this time not only peaceful but somewhat boring. But one day a demon attacked the encampment he was staying in. However, in an unwanted twist of fate, Yoriichi saved his elder brother from a demon by killing it. Yoriichi apologized to his brother for being late and for the deaths of his subordinates. However, the only thing Kokushibo was thinking about, it was like, bruh, you just came out of nowhere and you have this tremendous amount of strength. You know, how are you stronger than me? I haven't seen you in 10 years. Kokushibo couldn't save his own family or friends himself. It was by the help of someone stronger than him and more advanced in every sense of the word. This feeling of powerlessness fueled his jealousy once again, even in adulthood. This led to Kokushibo seeking the same strength and skill as his younger brother, in turn abandoning his wife and kid. Talk about being a terrible father on top of that. He became everything his brother Yoriichi wouldn't want him to be, as Yoriichi is meant to represent someone blessed by God and Buddha, where one should seek enlightenment and be selfless to the world for the betterment, rather than falling into desire and be sinful to achieve a dream in the earthly realm. Kokushibo started training with his brother and the other demon slayers in an attempt to learn sun breathing, a technique that Yoriichi developed and only he has been able to master. He tried to teach the others, but they failed, so they worked around each person's strength and taught them modified breath styles. That's where all the other styles derive from. Kokushibo, as well as many others, would develop a marking on their faces like Yoriichi. He thought that he could catch up to his brother in the end, but he finds out, wait a second, I couldn't even use sun breathing technique, I can't learn it. So instead he created a derivative breath which he later named moon breathing. Despite creating this technique, he was left with a bitter taste in his mouth as he couldn't match the strength of his brother's sun breathing. Despite that, the moon breathing style is one of the most deadly and powerful ever seen in the show. With this talent, he can produce and control hundreds of sharp crescent moon shaped blades from his katana. And over the years, as we later explore, Kokushibo grew stronger. He continued to improve his breathing style and established over a dozen techniques. Soon after, the ones with the mark started to die in droves. The payment for getting such a power boost was someone's lifespan. None of them made it past the age of 25. This is when Kokushibo encountered Muzan and got an offer from him to become a demon. Fearing the fated death of those who awakened their Demon Slayer marks, becoming a demon would mean he could live forever and perfect his breathing technique and therefore allow him more time to surpass his brother Yurichi. Kokushibo was terrified of losing and hoped to achieve his dream of becoming the greatest swordsman. Kokushibo was a user of total concentration breathing, a Demon Slayer mark person on top of that, and thus Muzan gave him the greatest concentration of his boosting blood in the organization, making him the strongest of the 12 demon moons and the second strongest demon in existence. As one of the oldest demons for around 1,000 years, he has fought many Demon Slayers and gained valuable fighting experience. His inferiority complex kept getting more powerful as time went by, which eventually made his desire for strength grow. Kokushibo, like all other demons, can manipulate his own flesh, but to a much larger degree after ingesting a lot of Muzan's blood. This allows him to control a detached portion of his body in the shape of his katana, being able to freely change the shape and size, allowing him to use his sword at a longer distance than most swordsmen. He also grew several blades from his own body, enabling him to make a variety of slashes without having to swing them. Kokushibo also has his own blood demon art called Crescent Moon Blade, as he is the opposite of his brother Yurichi, who is the sun and shining bright light, whilst he's the moon within the shadow of darkness. In the manga, we can clearly see that these powers and skills allowed Kokushibo to easily beat two Hashira before fighting Sanemi and Himejima, the current generation's most powerful Demon Slayers. On top of that, even when Himejima and Sanemi activated their Demon Slayer marks, he was able to hold his own against both of them. 4 Hashira level Demon Slayers had to face him at the same time to even stand a chance. He also has 6 eyes, which substantially expands his range of vision, removing any blind spots. He can also view the transparent world with his 6 eyes. He can see his opponent's muscles, blood flow, and joint movement. Only a few other Demon Slayers have achieved this feat. This grants him a heightened and quickened vision and perception, being able to view the world in slow motion, greatly augmenting their reflexes and speed. This meant he could see that Genya had consumed demons to achieve power by gazing into his cellular architecture, and could even identify Tokito as his descendant with only one glance. Now, I've given a brief explanation of how powerful he became. Now, if we rewind the clock a bit prior to this moment, Kokushibo met Yurichi again as an adult. He witnessed how huge the gap between them are. Even with all the powers I've just explained, right, Yurichi still is the boss. Even with Kokushibo becoming a demon, getting blood demon art, getting all these techniques, doing his own training, it was still limited due to his talent not matching Yurichi. There wasn't enough time in the world to close the gap. This pushed Kokushibo into a corner, resulting in him becoming desperate to use the power of demons. He took 3 days to become a demon, in fact, and 60 years went by until he met his brother again. Yurichi was grieved by his choice to change, whilst Kokushibo was horrified to witness his younger brother become old and decrepit, as well as enraged to learn that he had resisted the destiny of all marked Demon Slayers by being considerably older than 25 years old. Kokushibo thinks to himself like, wait a second, I'm not as angry as I anticipated to be if I saw my brother again. Yorichi's tears surprised him since it was the first time he had displayed emotion in his presence, which perplexed him. Despite his old age and apparent blindness, Yorichi's fighting stance in preparation to strike frightened Kokushibo, who knew then that his brother's immense skill and power had not decreased in the police, who knew just from a glance that, wait a second, my brother's immense skill and power had not decreased at all. Despite gripping his blade in anticipation, Yorichi had already struck and sliced across his neck. Kokushibo became angry seeing his brother's strength, that it had not weakened at all in the slightest, and waited to do a return strike. Yorichi, however, died of old age before he could finish off his brother. Kokushibo was enraged at this point, witnessing how his brother had surpassed all his expectations, dying of old age unbeaten. He knew that even Muzan was afraid of Yorichi. Enraged by his own inadequacy, he attacked Yorichi's lifeless body, which broke his childhood flute, which Yorichi still carried with him. Kokushibo couldn't help but cry when he saw how much his brother still admired him after his transformation. He was unable to cut the bond with his brother, so he kept the flute for himself. Following all of this, Kokushibo assisted Muzan in eliminating all sun-breathing users in order to prevent other demon slayers from obtaining the ability to kill the demon lord. Now, when we move back to the modern era, Kokushibo finds himself in the heat of battle against Genya, Sanemi, Himejima, and the descendant of the kid he once abandoned, Tokito. Kokushibo recognizes this as he praises their swordsmanship, stating it must be due to the blood that had been passed down through generations. It's also here where Kokushibo deduces that his human surname Sugikuni had become extinct over time. After additional fighting, Kokushibo is able to hack Michiru's arm off and is impaled by his own blade. Tokito is then offered the chance to become a demon by him, who claims that this will not only regrow his arm but also give him enormous power. However, Genya fires off his Nichiren gun, interrupting the conversation, which is when Kokushibo realizes he has been feeding onto demons. Despite another replica demon from 300 years ago also existing, Kokushibo realized that Genya is not the same, and that the only way to kill him is through decapitation, just like all other demons. But he doesn't get the chance to do that since Genya is saved by his brother Sanemi. The two fight, but Kokushibo mentions that he earned a lot of experience battling against simply more powerful Wind Hashira during the Sengoku period. After various scuffles and Kokushibo's delight at the prospect of battling such competent Hashira, he was ready to deliver a major blow when Himejima, the stone Hashira, arrived. After an intense back and forth struggle, Himejima reveals his Demon Slayer mark, which he had intended to keep for Muzan. After that, Kokushibo reveals that he too has the Demon Slayer mark and shows pity for Himejima when he exposes it, because he says without exception the marked ones die before they reach at the age of 25. He claims that since he displayed the mark, Himejima, who is 27 years old, should be dead by the end of the night, and so Kokushibo gives Himejima the chance to become a demon in order to survive the night. However, Kokushibo is then rattled when Himejima mentions how there was an exception. There was one who had the mark and survived beyond 25. Tokito, however, manages to free himself and help Genya reattach his body, giving him a clump of Kokushibo's hair to eat with the little life he had left. This gives Genya a level of strength he's never felt before, but more significantly, he seems to hear Muzan's voice talking directly to Kokushibo. As Tokito comes back to the battle, just as Sanemi seems to be ready to lose, he rescues the other Hashira just in time. Genya swallows a shattered piece of Kokushibo's sword to obtain its skills. The fight goes on and the demon has gained the upper hand. Genya fires a barrage of bullets at Kokushibo with his gun, which he altered using his own cells in the same fashion as the demon. These bullets then sprouted into trees, completely trapping him. He begins to worry as he is reminded of the time he met Yorichi again. Kokushibo, enraged by the prospect of defeat, sprouts several blades from his body, heavily injuring everyone. Despite this, the four march forward unafraid. Genya releases another blood demon R, rooting another tree in Kokushibo's back, whilst Himejima lands a hit on his skull with his flail, and Sanemi rushes in with his sword as Tokito's blade becomes crimson. Their sword sword all in fact glow crimson, and Kokushibo, moved by the memories of his brother, marvels at how the demon slayers who came after them had risen to exceed them. However, once Kokushibo's head is chopped off, his feelings quickly turn to rage and he regrows his head. Kokushibo starts to rejoice, bragging to himself that now that he has defeated death via beheading, all assaults directed at him would be pointless now. Any attacks thrown at him would be meaningless, and that the sun would be the only way to kill him. However, when he sees himself in the reflection of Sanemi's sword, though his elation is replaced with bewilderment, with tusks and spikes sprouting from his head, face and back, his new shape is absolutely hideous. Disgusted by his new look, he remembers his previous goal of becoming the country's greatest samurai, and he questions whether the road he has chosen is the one he really desires. Whilst debating his plans in his mind, Himejima is able to break Kokushibo's skull with his flail. He attempts to regenerate, but due to Tokito's crimson blade embedded in his body, his skin begins to dissolve and he is unable to execute his blood demon art. In his disintegration, he laments on his desire to be like Yorichi and how he has failed miserably in that endeavor. The one thing he wished he could forget is the one thing he can recall the most clearly, and that is Yorichi's face. He is forced to confront this realization, even as his whole life flashed before him. He acknowledged that he had abandoned everything and had accomplished nothing by killing his only surviving blood relative and breaching the samurai code. Whilst in his last moments, he contemplated his existence, reaching out to his brother for clarification. But then he passes away and leaves his shattered flute behind. Now guys, that is every single demon explained in extreme detail, their powers, their story, and everything about how they died. Now you know the whole entire Demon Slayer story. I hope you enjoyed it. So if you got to the end of the video and you want to let us know and we'll heart your comment, make sure to comment Tanjiro is a beast, and then I'll know, and then yeah, that proves that you watched the entire thing. Anyway guys, thanks for joining and I'll see you next time.